Aloha, everyone. Welcome. To tell the truth, I don't know exactly what is about to happen. I was planning a handstand class, and that's still what's going to happen. But last night, as I was trying to sleep, all these little adjustments were happening in my body and my spinal alignment and my breathing, and it made me feel like, ooh, I want to do some subtle work that feels really good, right? That just helps our posture, helps increase our breath flow, and the way that we support our bodies in space. So that's priority number one. But I think it's still going to lead to some handstanding because that was the plan. So we'll see what happens. It'll be an adventure for all of us. So let's begin. You can turn towards your right and gently begin to drape the body backward onto the floor. And it's up to you. You can extend the legs or bring soles of feet to the earth. That's my preference. If the soles of the feet are to the earth, let the feet walk wide and knock the knees in so that the legs can relax completely. And then relax the arms to wherever's comfortable and just observe the body for a moment. See if you can visualize the shape of the spine just by feeling and imagining. You might feel the sacrum gently supported by the earth, the gentle curve of the lumbar spine away from the earth. And then the thoracic vertebra, the space at the back of the heart, the space of the rib cage, again touching down. The apex of the neck reaching away. And then the base of the skull, the occiput, again resting. And we want these natural curves, but we also want a lot of space here. And so imagine with each breath, you're able to just create a little more space between each vertebra. Try breathing through the nose if you can. I think sometimes there's a tendency with the breath to arch through the front of the body. Make sure you're also breathing space through the back of the body. So the back side of the rib cage expands into the earth. And for me, as I begin to do this, I notice that there's more space in my neck. I can tuck my chin. That's that beautiful double chin effect, where the base of the skull reaches to the wall behind me. And just notice if you have that space as well. And I find when I do this, I actually breathe better. And we'll just take one more minute to breathe here, just to be relaxed in the body without any movement. Trying to feel the gentle sensations of the breath without grip, without force. One more breath. And just notice if anything has shifted in just that minute of silence. Notice if you've zoomed out at all, if anything has become more relaxed in the body. And as we're about to begin moving, I invite you to try to maintain this awareness, whatever shifted for you as you breathed. Try to stay in that spaciousness and that sense of release ungripping, undoing. If you're using the playlist today, you can hit play on the first track and just make sure it's set to loop. And then let's all bring our hands to the hip bone, so the front of the hip, that little ridge. Fingertips can rest there, and just gently start to rock the pelvis forward and back, and notice how this changes the curves of the spine. And at this point you can let the knees point upwards so the legs become a little more active, and this will just be better alignment for the knees as the pelvis rocks. Bonus, if your head moves as the pelvis rocks, just notice how the movement of the pelvis affects the spine all the way up to the base of the skull. And the next time the pelvis rocks backwards, so that's the moment where the low back, aloha Roseanne, so great to see you. When the low back presses down into the mat and the hips start to lift up, pause there, press into the feet and exaggerate it a little bit so the hips lift a little higher and you get a little more pressure through the spine, and then release the spine back down, rock the pelvis forward, so that's the big arch moment, and then rock the pelvis back again, let the hips lift, just entering a gentle bridge pose and then melting right back out of it. And take a few moments like this. The hands can come down to the earth at this point if that feels more stable, and just start to massage through the low back. Notice the gentle, deep core strength required to peel the pelvis and the spine off of the mat. Make sure you're breathing. Try to keep that length in the back of the neck. And if the body's craving it, you can let the pelvis lift a little higher each time. Not the goal, but if you notice your body wants that, you can follow that wish. And the next time the hips come down, extend the legs out and just take a mini shavasana, and just again notice the alignment of the spine here. Notice any sense of neutral, and at this point you don't have to change it if your spine doesn't feel neutral, unless you're craving a shift. Gently circle the arms overhead, point through the toes, and stretch through the whole body. And notice if there's any tightness in the sides of the neck or the tops of the shoulders here, and give yourself permission to circle the arms back down and try again. And if you're trying again, try to reach more through the pinky side and let the thumb side of the arm be nice and soft, and the arms don't have to go any wider than a T or a Y. And then, keeping arms where they are, relax them completely. Let the elbows soften, and just take a couple of breaths, letting the rib cage interact with the shoulders here. And try to breathe evenly into the back of the heart. I notice that my breath goes more into my left lung, and I have to be conscious if I want the right side of my body to expand, if I want my right shoulder to have as much space as my left. So just notice if you have any asymmetry and be conscious and compassionate with it. And then start to drag the heels in one at a time. Bring the knees into the chest and gently curl up, letting the lift come from the low belly. Let the head be light. Release the soles of the feet to the mat. Bring the hands back into the hip points, and we'll use our shushing breath from last week to engage transversus abdominis. So take a natural breath in through the nose. And on the exhale, breathe out of the mouth as you say shh. And just notice what engages in that flesh just inside the hip points. Take a few of these. Shh. Notice any sense of the deep core becoming a little more taut, like the head of a drum. And see if you can use that action to flatten through the abdomen. So the front edge of the body sucks down towards the spine, not in an intense way. It happens naturally, and you can just kind of increase it with your awareness. And notice if this shushing breath is helping you find a more neutral spine, a more neutral pelvis. And then see if you can maintain that natural core activation as you breathe normally. You can keep the fingers where they are. I do that sometimes so I can tell whether I'm keeping the deep core on. If you know the deep core is on, you can bring your fingertips behind your ears to open up through the front arm line, namely the pecs. And so keeping the deep core engaged, we'll exhale to slowly lift one foot and then set it down and exhale, lift the other foot. And we're going to have a lot of different options here, and this is option 1. And this is the most accessible. It puts the least amount of weight in the pelvis. So if you're enjoying this, just stay right here. The next option is to lift one leg and then lift the other leg, and then set one leg down and then the other. And you should notice when both legs lift, especially when that second leg starts to lift away, that it requires more core strength. If you notice that the pelvis is tipping and the low back is arching as you do that, stick to keeping the one foot on the ground at a time. But sometimes it feels good to have the extra weight to work against so you feel like that deep core can get stronger. Let's all take a break, bring the soles of the feet together, and allow the knees to slowly drift towards the earth, but resist the urge to just let them flop out to the sides. Again, try to find a neutral pelvis here. There's a tendency to overarch the low back. Gently press soles of feet together and notice how the adductors engage and the knees might lift just a little bit. Use your next couple of breaths to notice how this leg positioning interacts with the breath and the deep core. And then very slowly let the knees lift back up to where they were. We'll do another round of our deep core work. If you want to find transversus abdominis again, you can take a couple of rocks with the fingertips inside the hip points. Find your neutral pelvis, neutral spine, back of the neck is long, and then take a couple of shushing breaths. And then same options, you can lift one at a time, both at a time, or the next option is with both of them lifted. If this feels very easy, lower one and very slowly start to glide that foot down. You can let the heel rest on the ground. It's harder if the leg is fully elevated. That leg extending is going to want to tip the pelvis forward, so it's going to take a lot of core strength to avoid that tip. And then the leg drags back in and you can swap sides. Nice. It looks like everyone is exploring that leg drag, and I'm glad, because there's something I want to do in the moment when the next time your left leg is extended. Pause there and wrap your fingertips around the right knee, and notice as you squeeze the right knee in how the pelvis rounds and the low back flattens. And then extend the left leg more to counteract that rounding. So you should feel the glutes of the left leg engage a little extra to try to neutralize the pelvis. So relax for a moment and then play with this. Pull the knee in. Notice how it pulls the pelvis one way, and then reach through the extended leg to try to neutralize the pelvis. This is going to be our new thing that we learn in handstand today, is to work with the legs in this way to help find more deep core strength and to neutralize our pelvis. So we're not going to have our hands like this, of course, when we're doing a handstand. So once you find that neutral, see if you can bring the toe to the inner thigh, but still keep that same action as the left leg reaching forward and the right slightly pulling up. Gently reach the arms overhead. Imagine there's a wall behind you, so the wrists flex and you push into the wall. Kick out through the left heel and see how long you can get. And then set the sole of the right foot down right where it is. And just like we did in Baddha Konasana, but now just with one leg, slowly let the right knee open to the side. It's going to want to pull the pelvis to the right. So notice how the deep core can engage to prevent that rotation. Right? Notice any sense of stability between the deep core and the right hip socket. And then let the right knee lift and glide the right leg out. Let's take a mini shavasana here. It's up to you if arms are overhead or if they float down to the sides, whatever feels best. We'll do that same thing on the other side, and I just want to give you a moment for those neurological pathways to wire in. So I'll be quiet and you can just breathe. All right, let's try this again. So soles of the feet to the earth. Take a couple of pelvic tilts on your own. You can move as slowly as you want through each of these steps now that you know it. So go ahead without me if you want to, or just stay in each of these segments. The next one is slowing down the rocking of the pelvis, finding the neutral, and then using your shushing breath to activate transversus abdominis. And then slowly lifting one leg at a time, and we'll take a few of these glide outs where the one heel reaches out, and then just notice that counter pulling action, like opening scissors, where each blade pulls away from one another. And again, this is going to want to tip the pelvis, so your work is to keep pelvis neutral. And if you can't do that here, come back to the gentler 1 foot at a time action. The next time the right leg extends, let's pause there, wrap fingertips around the left shin. Take a couple of rocks with the shin from side to side if that feels good in the hip socket. And then notice as you pull the shin into the body how the low back starts to round. Start to kick out through the left heel and use that kicking to counter the rounding of the left knee into the chest. And notice how the right leg has to work quite hard and how there's some extra engagement in the glute. This is really important when we're doing our handstand. The glutes engaging is going to help extend the front of the hip and let us get nice stacking. Take a couple of breaths here. You can play with pulling the knee in more and notice what that does for the extended leg, how you have to work a little harder. And then let the leg go, let the toe come to the inner thigh, and allow the same action to occur, but now we'll bring our hands into our handstand option. And if the shoulders don't feel good here, we're not actually in handstand, so the arms can go wherever they want. This is like handstand in space. And try to feel the kicking out through the right heel and how that integrates all the way up the spine, all the way up to the wrists. And then release the left foot to the earth and very gently start to let the knee open off to the side. Notice how the shift in the hips, the weight wants to shift, and try to counter that with your deep core stabilization. I didn't offer this on the first side, but my body really wants to do a couple of butterfly flaps here to go through eccentric and concentric contraction with that left adductor. And then let the left heel glide out, and let's just pause and give ourselves a moment just to be. Glide both feet in one last time, and let's just open the front of the hips after all of that hip flexion. So drag the knees forward to unweight the pelvis, reach the hands towards the heels, and start to sway from side to side, walking the shoulder blades in underneath the back. You can interlace the hands if that feels good, and reach the knuckles towards the heels. Tuck the chin extra, and notice how the shoulder blades can pull down as the occiput pulls up to lengthen a little extra through the back of the neck. Gently sway the hips from side to side, and just notice how this massages the scapula. And the hips don't need to be high here. You can be more of a hammock, less of a bridge. And then release the hands so they go wide. Slowly melt the spine down. Grab behind the thighs. Start to rock and roll. Option to go hands free. That's going to be more of a core exercise. Don't do it if it doesn't feel good. Notice if you're going hands free, if you move a little asymmetrically, sometimes it's one side of the body's a little stronger. Just notice and see if you can go a little slower and roll a little more evenly. And then we'll come all the way up to seated. Nice. We're going to wake up our arms and our hands a little bit extra. So start rocking. I'm going to go 3/4 just so you can see me. Start shifting the weight from side to side, letting one hand at a time become like a little spring. Let the elbow be soft. Make sure the elbow's tucking in towards the body as you bounce, and try to let this action go into the pinky side of the hand. And notice how the pinky side of the hand enlivens the muscles on the back of the arms, especially the triceps. And the next time the left hand comes to the mat, pause there, extend the right leg, let the right hand come. I like to do underneath the knee, feels good, but it really doesn't matter what the right hand does. Do a karate chop with the left hand, feel the pinky side of the left hand anchoring down, and then just let each fingertip gently relax, and then let the whole right side of the thumb push down. And it will sort of look like you're palming a basketball. Bend the elbow and extend a couple of times, and be really soft through the hands. You can even push into the fingertips to take a couple of jumps here. And notice how the hand becomes more springy when you're soft in this way instead of forcing the fingers to spread out. Cross the right hand or the right foot over the left. Reach the right hand up and slowly swivel the knees down to pivot to a tabletop. And then place the right hand underneath you. And then we're going to keep the swivel going so we end up all the way around. I'll show you that again. So from tabletop, right hand underneath the heart, push down into the right hand, let the left hand lift, let the knees swivel to the left so the bum comes down. Yeah, nice, you got it. And then we're going to do that again on the second side. So now the left leg extends, Left hand comes anywhere on the right leg that feels comfortable. I like underneath the knee. I know you're turning away from me. We're going to do some springs in the right arm. Same thing as the first side. And then bring just the pinky down and take a karate chop and feel how that translates up the pinky side of the arm all the way into the tricep and the back of the shoulder, all the way into the rhomboids. Notice how it feels in the right side of the neck. You can gaze right and left, and we do want to make sure our arm and shoulder actions are not creating any tension in the neck. So it's always good to soften and look around a little bit. Keeping the pinky down, we'll release one fingertip at a time, and then the whole left side of the thumb. Doming the hand. You can grip with the fingertips a little bit, kind of like a gecko might as it's on the stucco of Konalani. And then bend the elbow and extend. Option to push down into the fingertips to jump again, or you can keep the hand down if you don't want to lose the position that you've created. The next time the hand comes down, take one moment to breathe in this modification of Urdhva Matsyendrasana. And then we'll go into our same transition as before. So left leg crosses in front of the right, both knees bend. Push down into the right hand. Let the knees start to swivel to the right, and the left hand drops into table. And we're going to do this a couple more times. So left hand walks underneath the heart. Push down into the left hand. Let the knees swivel to the right. Bring your hips down, and then go back the way you came. So the hands switch and you swivel the other way. And if that doesn't feel good on the anywhere, you can just pause in the twist that we were in before. But if it feels good, take a couple of these and start to notice how putting weight in the pinky side of the hand integrates into the back of the body. Notice how you can move slowly through this and feel support through the shoulders and the back. The neck can stay soft. And the next time you're in tabletop, pause there, but you don't need to rush. Let the hips melt back to the heels, palms face up, forehead to the mat or a block, and breathe into the back of the body. Breathe into the back of the neck. Tuck the chin a little extra. Breathe into the very top rib. Imagine breathing into one rib at a time through the back body until you get all the way down to the floating ribs at the low back. And sometimes we don't breathe into the back of the body. If this isn't comfortable, you can always do the same thing in tabletop with a rounded spine like cat pose. Notice if you can break up anything that's tight in the back of the body or in a place where you don't feel like the breath moves. And it's so amazing that the ribs protect our lungs, yet they're really adaptable. Each one can move. Each one can create more space. Our rib cage literally can change shape. And flat, flip the palms, tent the fingertips, and slowly walk the hands in towards the knees. Press down into the shins to rise up into a kneeling pose. Grab a blanket if you don't have one already, and place it underneath the knees. If you're following along with the music, you can go to the second track now, and it's also a great time to have a sip of water. My water bottle is over here. And I feel like I broke all the rules walking around before we even did kneeling, and boy, did it feel good. So we're all going to do it. Come up to standing. I don't feel like being on my knees right now. And start to walk around the space and just notice what feels ignited in your deep core. Notice any sense of awareness through the arms and how they connect down into the low back. Let the arms swing. And see how light you can be as you walk around your space. And then make your way slowly back to the mat and facing the way that you were before. We can meet in kneeling, so I think the right side of your body is towards the screen. Bring your hands to the hip points just like you did on your back and take a few pelvic tilts here. And start to notice that moment when the tailbone's dropping, how there's this sensation of the back of the body drawing downward. And then let that go. And do that a few times and start to feel how the back of the body pulls down and the front of the body gently lifts, not even into a back bend. We're literally in a neutral spine here. It's really subtle. Notice how this is impacting your neck. Notice if you can lengthen up through the occiput, just like we practiced when we were on our backs. Make sure you're breathing. And the next time you find what feels like neutral for you, stay there. Start to bend a little more deeply at the knees so you rock back and then come back up. If you want to sync this with the breath, you can exhale for the rock back. And then optional, the hands can lift into those handstand hands, but honestly, they can stay at the hips. They can hover just to the horizon. It's all good. The magic is in what's happening in the deep core. So all of that's just bonus. Let's take one more, and as you rock back, start to shift forward and let the left leg go with you, stepping into the 90 lunge. And I apologize, I didn't have you set your blocks up, so we'll go through that transition again. Grab your blocks, place them ahead of you, and then come back to kneeling and take your rock back, letting one leg step forward. And we'll do that a couple times just to practice that transition. Subtle weight shift. And notice how the momentum naturally carries you forward. Like that front knee wants to bend a little bit, and go with that. Try to let the momentum guide you. And the next time the left leg steps forward, pause there. And bring the hands to the blocks. Let the left foot walk a little bit further to the left. I'm going 3/4 just so you can see me. And if you need more space between the left heel and the right knee, give yourself permission to do that. And then imagine there's a quarter underneath the back knee. Start to circle your weight around that quarter. And the hips just naturally follow. Anchor the front big toe. Try to keep the pinky side of the front foot down to wake up the arches in the foot, and just notice how the shoulders and neck feel here. Can feel nice on the wrist sometimes to come to the front edge of the block so that the fingertips curl over the edge. Push down a little extra on the pinky side and just notice what that stimulates through the arms. And then center your weight between both feet. Start to push down into the blocks to round the spine. Lengthen a little extra through the low back. Breathe into the low back. And then press the hips forward and slowly roll up. Feel that downward pulling action of the back of the body, letting the front of the body lift. Nice circle with the arms. And then bring the hands back down to the blocks and do this a few times on your own. Press down into the blocks, around the spine. Notice how the deep core supports the front of the spine. And then push the hips forward to slowly roll up, letting the back line pull down, letting the arms float. If you want to pause for a moment, flex the wrists in that handstand position. You can even bend the back knee like we were doing before to awaken the deep core. And just take a few moments to explore this movement, resetting the lines of pull in the body. And try to move as smoothly as possible, because that means your body is supported. That means your movement's intelligent and your deep core is initiating the movement. And the next time the hands come down to the blocks, you can lower them to the lowest height, glide the left foot straight back, and let the right arm reach forward for flying table. Lengthen out through the left heel, reach the right arm forward, and like we did on our back, try to feel how the legs are pulling opposite on the pelvis, right? One is trying to rock it forward, the other is trying to extend it. Notice how the legs can pull against each other to enliven the deep core even more. And then release the hand down, release the knee down, press the hips back to the heels for a moment. The hands can slide off the block. A block can go underneath the forehead. That feels really nice. And just breathe and absorb and relax. And this was feeling really good for me. So let's all take a block and place it underneath the third eye, and just gently roll the head from side to side, massaging all the pressure points underneath the eyebrows. And then let's roll up, place the blocks to the highest height, come back to kneeling. We'll start with a few of those rock backs. And notice we've done a lot of deep core work today. So notice if the body's craving a little bit more here, if you can go a little further without irritating the knees. Less is more, so don't push it, but just notice if it's starting to open up for you. And you can play with that same transition where one foot steps forward with the momentum, and then you come back, rock back, and the other foot. And if you're not enjoying that transition, we will just meet with the right foot forward in a moment. You can play with the arms overhead just like we did before. The next time the right foot steps, let's pause there, release the hands to the blocks. Let the right foot walk over to the right. Option for the left knee to slide back any amount, but you want to feel really stable and supported here, not stretching. Quarter underneath the left knee now, and just circle your weight around that quarter. Notice how both legs work together to support the pelvis here. And notice the orientation of the pelvis. Oftentimes we either have it curled under or rocked forward, and see if you can work with the legs and the deep core to find your neutral pelvis. And then center the weight between back knee and front foot. Push down into the blocks to round the spine, especially the low back. Press the hips forward. Slowly roll up, letting the back line pull down to hoist the front of the body open. Weightless moment at the top. And then begin again. Arms drop, spine rounds. Nice. Nice pacing, everybody. And then you've got your options. You can do handstand hands. You can do a little extra rock back. Try to follow what the body's craving. And if you're not sure, just keep it simple. Just enjoy this rolling, massaging action that might not feel like a whole lot, but it is so strengthening and will give you better posture. The next time the hands come to the blocks, lower them to the lowest height. Glide the right foot all the way back and let the left hand float into your flying table. Notice your pelvis. See if your pelvis is neutral or not. Try to reach the right heel back, reach the left hand forward, and notice how the legs are pulling the pelvis in opposite directions, but you can use them to stabilize. Bring the hands to the blocks. Bring the right knee down. Let's shift the blocks forward just about one hand print. Exhale to hover the knees and inhale to set them back down. Take a couple of these. The next time the knees hover, inhale, press into the hands to send the hips up and back. Keep a deep bend in the knees. Start to sway the hips from side to side, just noticing how that lengthens the lats and the side body. Stay soft in the shoulders. Option to let the legs begin to lengthen, but you don't want to feel any sense of pulling in the low back or in the hamstrings. It should feel even through the whole back line of the body. Nice. Everyone's down dogs look textbook supported. And then start to walk the feet in towards the blocks. Bend the knees deeply. Bring the blocks to the highest height. Push down to round the spine just like we did in our lunge. Anchor the big toes. Weight shifts back into the heels. Start to send the hips forward to roll up one vertebra at a time, feeling the back line pull down and the front line lengthen upward. Notice any firming of the glutes without gripping. Option for your stand handing, flexing the wrists here and letting the shoulder blades glide up slightly, that natural elevation that happens when the arms are overhead. Take a couple of breaths here. And if you feel rigid, just let the weight gently shift from foot to foot and notice if that helps smooth things over. And then melt the arms down and go to the next track. We're adding something in from last week, totally optional, but I really appreciate getting to feel the weight shifting in handstand with this little pedestal. So if you want to try it, the feet come onto the blocks. You'll fold forward, deep bend in the knees, right? Because the floor is further away. So this is like an extra hard down dog or forward fold. I guess I can actually move back a little. And then because the feet are up, you can play with getting the hips over the shoulders without having to jump. And this is a great foot massage. If you don't want this much weight in the hands, just keep the hands forward, more like down dog, and get the same foot massage through the feet, rocking forward and back. Bring the knees down at any time that you need a break. And then if you want more, the hands can be closer to the blocks and try to feel how when the hips come forward, the fingertips have to grip a little bit extra to stabilize the arms. Let the neck be soft. And then start to paw the hands forward. Lower the knees down. Slide the feet off of the blocks. And take a moment in Bhaktasana. Option to circle the arms around the body. Grab one wrist and relax the hips. You can enjoy stillness or gently rock from side to side. And then release the arms and slowly make your way back to that forward fold. Blocks underneath the hands, bend the knees around the spine, and slowly roll up one last time. You can grab a sip of water. And I know some folks at Konalani are excited for handstands. Interesting. But not everyone might be excited to do that. So I want to give some options. Using a wall might be helpful. Can you do the shoji screen, not for a handstand, but just for a wall? So option 1 is great for the shoulders, still really strengthening, accessible to everyone. This is my makeshift wall because I didn't want to set up the shrine today. So you would come to a wall. You'd find this distance from the wall, so enough that you'll be able to reach it pretty easily. And then from Virabhadrasana 1, you'll just play with coming into Virabhadrasana 3 with springy arms. And if that feels good, you can step further away and try the same thing. And notice this really is the same positioning as a handstand, right? So this is a great warm-up for a handstand, but it's also just great in itself. Make sure the shoulders are soft. Try to kick through the heel. And again, notice how the bottom leg is pulling the pelvis rounded, and then the kicking leg is leveling it out. And just notice how those two can work together to help you get as much length and strength as possible. And after a few of those, the front leg gets tired, so we turn to the side, we bend the knee, we just take a couple of releasing moments, and then you'll play with the other side. So feel free to do that variation. If you want to revisit handstands this week, we're going to do the same propel yourself method. Oh, you can get rid of that because I don't want to put a hole in it. Now Satyam's just going to catch me. So same propel yourself method from last week, but I want to add one new thing in. So this method from last week, I need you. We rocked back. I think I need more space. No? Okay. We rocked back, brought the leg forward just like we practiced, right? So rock back, leg forward, and that sprung us right into our handstand. The thing that's different is instead of getting both legs up, try the stagger with the legs, this position, so that you can play with finding your neutral pelvis. And neurologically, way harder to do with Satyam than with the wall. So I definitely feel very guarded here, but I'll see if I can get a good example. Push, push, push. So that's our fun thing that we're playing with, is using the legs to find your balance. And I couldn't see myself there, but hopefully you could see that little sort of like jig, I don't want to say jiggling, that like quivering that happens as the pelvis is pulled forward and back and it's trying to find neutral. So yes, that's it. So have at it. For those of you that I can see, I'll observe. Oh yeah, and after you do that, you do the same thing as everyone else where you turn to the side and take your break, right? And then you'll come back forward and lower down so you can do the other side. And Satin will be a great example here. Nice springiness, Mom. Nice, Roseanne. I can only see that lifted leg, but it looks like a very strong Virabhadrasana 3. Hello. So the leading leg is straight. Like the leg that goes up first is the straight one, and then the following leg is the one that it does like a flamingo. So yeah, they stay right. They just a reminder, if anyone needs to know that breaks are good, just swing the arms out a little bit and sway from side to side effortlessly. And when you feel like you've had enough, especially if you're doing that first sequence and you've been doing it for a while, you can come back to the mat. Handstanders, you can go longer. I want this to be accessible to everyone, but we have something that you can do back at the mat while you're waiting. First, we're going to roll up our blanket for massaging the ribs, and so you'll want to open your blanket nice and wide. Mine's halfway folded. And then start to roll it. Actually, roll it the widest way, because we don't want the roll to get too big, so that. And then you place it across the mat. And bring it just behind the hips, and then take your time wiggling from side to side, eventually bringing the bottom of the rib cage onto your rolled blanket. And before you get too comfortable, you can go to the 4th track or to silence if the body's wanting that. And we'll begin with the soles of the feet to the earth, knees knocked in. And then find some gentle pelvic tilts. And notice how with the blanket underneath the rib cage, this gentle tilting starts to provide a massage for the muscles in between the ribs and along the spine. And this is sort of a choose your own adventure moment. And so you can stay in this position, this rocking, as long as you want. The next exploration after this is pointing the knees wide and taking gentle windshield wipers to start to massage to the left and to the right. And just like we did at the beginning of the class, start to notice how the breath fills the back of the body. Start to notice that lengthening out of the base of the skull. Notice the gentle, deep core awakening that happens when you don't allow the pelvis to just totally spill forward. And the next option is to let yourself roll all the way to one side and then just start to massage that side of the body on the blanket. And these are the options going all the way up the spine. And the goal is to find the spots that feel the best for you. Maybe they feel a little tight or a little numb, or it just feels really good. And you do not have to do every vertebra. You don't have to do all of these movements. Just let them be like a toolkit as you explore, trying to find what is the most interesting and useful to you. So if you haven't already, eventually you can inch down a little bit, seeking out another interesting place to explore, and the different methods were pelvic tilts, windshield wipers, and the side body rolling. And my big epiphany last night, as I woke up in the middle of the night and my heart was beating so fast, I realized I wasn't like getting enough oxygen, and my heart was beating really fast to try to give my body more oxygen. And so what helped me were the methods that we've been doing in class today. Tucking my chin more really opened up my airways. Not everyone has this issue, but sleep apnea and like teeth grinding, tight jaw muscles are all signs of airway issues. So the tucking the chin, but the real magic was starting to breathe into the back of my rib cage. And at first it was so tight. It was like no breath wanted to go there. But eventually the breath kind of massaged the back of the rib cage open, and I just was breathing the best I've ever breathed. So I hope as you explore here, you can have just that motivation of opening up more freedom in the breath. And of course this is wonderful throughout the day, but when we can breathe better as we sleep, we repair and regenerate a lot more efficiently. And so my hope for myself and for all of you is that we can sleep better and wake up more refreshed. And the cool thing with this massage technique, it almost just puts these areas on the map, right? Like how often do we think about the space between each little rib? But through this exercise, we're bringing a lot of awareness into the back of the body, and it almost just like reminds us in a subtle way that we can have more freedom here. The breath can travel really easily and readily here just because we've remembered this exists. Your whole body doesn't have to change, just your awareness is enough. And eventually slide all the way down so the roll is underneath the base of the skull, the occiput, in that chin tucked position. Then as you roll from side to side, let this massage the base of the skull where lots of muscles attach. And if you find an area that needs love, you can just pause there and just breathe into it, letting the chin tuck, letting the base of the skull reach away. And I don't want to rush anyone through this process, so you can enjoy all these things for as long as you want. But there are a couple of Shavasana props that I'm going to strongly recommend. The classic knee support, so you can take your roll and fold it over, and it'll be about the right thickness to go underneath the knees. And I apologize, I didn't tell you to have a second blanket, but having a blanket or a pillow could be really nice here, because this was another game changer for me. Instead of having my pillow underneath my head where you would imagine, I pulled it down into the midpoint between my shoulders. You might want to try it with your blanket folded one extra time so it's a little bit more like a pillow. And this helped me get optimal neck alignment so that my breathing could really open up. That ridge doesn't feel good. I don't like the big ridge, so I'm taking the other end, the uneven end, and then it slopes kind of like stair steps. And you can pause your music at this time. And of course your body knows best, so if this doesn't feel good for you, you can do whatever feels most natural, but it basically helps support the trapezius muscle, so that we have a little more freedom in the upper traps, so we can get more length through the base of the skull like we've been working on, and more softness in the shoulders. So a lot of PTs actually recommend having your pillow a little bit lower if you are sleeping on your back. Your hands can come wide, just make sure the elbows feel supported, or the hands can rest on the navel. And then before you let go completely, just take a moment for that little chin tuck. And let the breath fill the whole body, and let your awareness be extra curious about how this feels in the back of the neck and the back of the rib cage. And then let yourself start to relax. And let yourself be nourished by these deep, full breaths. And we'll rest here for the next 10 minutes or so. Let yourself just be. Start to observe the breath. Notice how relaxed it is. Imagine the breath traveling down all the way to the fingertips and down the legs to the toes. Just gently re-energizing each cell. And whenever you feel ready, without rushing, you can make any gentle movements and try to enjoy the awareness you have in this moment, this quiet, steady focus. And to anything that the body is asking for, any stretching, any gentle rocking, circling of arms, windshield wipering of legs. And let these gentle movements be like a full body massage. And eventually, when it feels right, can start making your way to seated and enjoy the pathway there. We did a lot of actions to help with posture, and so as you eventually come to seated, you can take a moment to round the spine forward and then anchor the sits bones and slowly roll up like we did in a few different postures, feeling that back line pulling down, feeling the opening across the front body. And wiggle the shoulders around, eventually letting them rest, sliding down the rib cage so the chest feels spacious and the shoulder sockets feel wide. And then wiggle a little bit on the sits bones and play with reaching the occiput, the base of the skull, up towards the sky for that chin tucking action. And just notice how when you find that reaching, the deep core just gently brightens. Might even feel like the deep core helps stabilize the thigh bones and the hip sockets. You have more support and space in your seat. Let the tongue gently rest to the roof of the mouth, mouth closed. And observe your breath. Notice with all the work you've done with your posture and your rib cage and your air passageway, if the breath feels fuller or easier. And then see if you can relax a little through the physical body. And find that spaciousness around the breath. You can attach one of our lineage mantras to the breath. When in doubt, hum sa is a really nice choice when we're focusing on our natural breath. And just see how soft and receptive you can be. Let yourself soften a little bit. Let the spine sway. Let the shoulders glide up and down. Bring hands to heart center and notice, even though the body is swaying, how centered and anchored and supported you may feel. And this really is the goal as we practice. We learn how to support ourselves inside, and so we can feel this stability despite whatever may be happening around us or even to us. And I hope you feel this inner support and nourishment. Thank you for practicing. Namaste. Take care, everybody. Have a good rest of your day or night. Hope that prepared you well for sleep, Mom.
That was wonderful. I feel so relaxed.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
oh, I'm so happy. Yes, that's great. Sleep tight.
I will. I enjoyed hearing you talk about when your heart beats, because mine does that sometimes, usually before I go to sleep, and it's always my yoga breathing that gets it to go away. So, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Love you too. Sajam says see you soon. And I say that too, I guess.
Not too long, next month.
Yay.
Yay.
Hi, Roseanne. So glad you could squeeze practice in. Amazing. I didn't think that was going to happen. What a nice surprise. Have a good trip. We miss you. Oh, and I didn't get a chance to reply to the text, but be wonderful for you to come on the Sunday of the intensive. It's okay that you already signed up online. You're still welcome to join us.
Okay, or else I could talk to Jatila too and see.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I would just rather you get to be here and participate, so that's great.
Okay, sounds good.
Yay.
Thank you.
Of course. See you soon.
Yes.
Oh, the meeting. Yeah, it's still. This is the hardest one. I can't see it. Ugh, it's just, can you just do it? Yeah, there's a trackpad.